You know what you never hear about anymore is critical race theory. And that's pretty amazing because we were able as a country to get rid of it in about like 6 months.
Well, we replaced it with DEI.
In every single classroom, elementary school that critical race theories was being taught in, we were able to get rid of it in 6 months. Nobody ever talks about it anymore. You know where it is? It's living right now with the Caravan that was going to come take away your weekend homes up in Minnesota.
And the wokeness, right? We don't even hear that much about wokeness anymore.
Wokeness is gone, but DEI is still here, and
that's the richest version of this exact same sort of anti-black or anti-whatever hysteria. DEI is the investor version. CRT is the bureaucratic version. Woke is the sort of popular version.
We got to go through all of those things, I guess.
But it always goes to the top because that's where the money comes from.
Yep. And of course, that's what's bringing down all those planes.
Right.
But this is like a perfect example of what critical race theory basically uncovers. Apparently, for a long time in medicine, and are people aware that I think it wasn't until 1991 that the National Institutes of Health, they did not do any studies on women's health.
Yeah.
They did not do any studies on women's health. They just basically extrapolated from men's health. And then somebody had the bright idea in 91 to say, like, maybe just because women derived from a male rib, they may have different health issues. Apparently, there was a test, and I have some familiarity with this with the kidneys. There are measures and metrics as to how well your kidneys are performing, and there are substances in the blood that show up if your kidney is not functioning that well, like creatins, for instance. Apparently, there was a test that overestimated how well black people's kidneys were functioning. This is because there was an automated formula that calculated results for black and non-black patients differently. And what that did, there is a list of people nationwide who are on a list to get kidney donations. If you have two kidneys, you really only need one. But if your second kidney fails, at one point you got to go on dialysis, and there's there's a sort of an interim period where you can go and try and find a kidney. Kidneys are like you say, you only need one. So people, there are kidney donations. There was an awareness, I guess, that this test sort of gave more health points to black people. And they had just a different formula. And it's unclear to me from what I've read here as to why this was the case. But it was more than likely just sort of like, racist assumptions that exist. I mean, we know from studies that black people, particularly black women, when their doctors will underprescribe painkillers to black women because they just assume that black women are they're being hysterical about the amount of pain they're in or something.
Well, I remember, we had Dr. Uche Blackstock on at the start of Black History Month to talk about this very topic, and she cited this study that sticks out to me all the time, which was one in the proceedings of the National Academies of Science, where they found that 40% of first and second year medical students believe black people's skin is thicker than white people's. So, these kinds of assumptions go very, very deep, and doctors are not priests. The medical community is not exempt from having racist assumptions.
Are priests not racist?
Well, I forgot to tell you that I'm a devout Christian.
A few years ago, the National Kidney Foundation, the American Society of Nephrology, convinced laboratories to switch to race-free equations in calculating kidney function. And then the U.S. Organ Transplant Network ordered hospitals to use only race-neutral test results in adding new patients to their kidney waiting list. And so basically it changed the order in which people were in there. But they were like, well, what about people who are already on the list, who are way down on the list because this formula essentially says that they don't need a kidney as much as these other white people who need a kidney more. And so the Transplant Network gave hospitals a year to uncover which black kidney candidates could have qualified for a new kidney sooner. And this time last year, more than about 14, the story's just coming out, 14,000 black kidney transplant candidates had their waiting times modified by an average of 2 years. Since that time, about 2,800 of them have gotten transplants. But just the existence of this, there are people who study like health equity in the same way we've had people come on to talk about equity in the law. We had, was it Professor Dorothy Brown? Is that her name? She came on and spoke about how she's a tax law professor and found that there were inequities built into our tax system because, not because, somebody at the IRS wanted to be racist, but we know how tax laws are developed is somebody proposes a law and then wealthy people come and lobby to get loopholes in that law or to reflect the structure of their lives. And black people are basically left out of that process for years and years and years. So what is considered the normal structure of how two people earn money in a family, let's say, was really only reflective of how white people earn money in this country for a long time. And the tax laws benefited white people over black people. Regardless, you could still have the same amount of income, but the way in which it was earned benefited white people. I mean, frankly, we had that with capital gains. But this was a little bit more, submerged. But there's also health equity scholars in medicine. And when we talk about critical race theory, this is what we're talking about. Finding the structures of society that are racist in outcome without necessarily having to be racist in intent. And so this was fixed. But I found it, an interesting story to look at for, it's too bad people aren't talking about critical race theory anymore. But if they were, this would have been a good one to share with your uncle who's been watching a lot of Fox News.
I would like to see some uncles get presented with The Whiteness of Wealth by Dorothy Brown and see their reactions to that.
It would be a nice gift.
Yeah,
Thanksgiving.
maybe take the cover off.
Thanksgiving gift.